So first off, I've always said I think it's phenomenal that players get a chance to get paid, which is great. I do think, which I've stood up here and said before when it first happened, that there's going to be some major issues, and we're creating free agency with the portal, and with NIL, you've got a lot of pay for play going on, and that is what it is. So, those two things combining, there just is not a system in place, and I don't think that there's any other sports at any level that are like this, that really you every year can opt into free agency, really twice a year. And I was just thinking on a plane ride over here, what if you had that in other sports? Tom Brady, Asia Wilson, Lionel Messi, LeBron James. What if every year those guys can opt into free agency twice a year, really, and they got no long-term contracts? Basically, everybody's not even on a 1-month contract because they can leave in 2 windows. So it's just created a lot of issues, and these roster changes, and I'm not complaining about it because we take advantage, obviously, of free agency, but at the same time, I don't think that's really good for college football. These massive overhauls of rosters every year really is not in the best interest of college football. And then when you add the NIL at the same time, we've created, I've said it before, we got different caps and no luxury taxes. So now we got professional sports, because that really is what we are, what's been created now, and there's no caps on what guys can make or what teams' payrolls are. So when this first came out, it said, all right, basically whatever programs have the most aggressive boosters with the most money are going to get the players. And now we're adding some states that now you don't have to follow NCAA, and now the university can take their money and give it to the collective to give to the players. So now we really have pay for play, that the biggest schools with the most donors, most aggressive, and the school wants to spend the most money paying the players for play to come to their school is where we're at. So there's kind of your State of the Union on the situation of what all coaches are dealing with around the country, and really a poor system that isn't getting better, now is going to get worse with this, because again, now we just look at recruiting rankings, and you're going to see that they usually are going to follow this, donor base and what schools are going to decide to give the most money to the players. So it is what it is. We'll deal with it like we do with everything else, but somehow it's got to get fixed because there's no system around it.
Second row.
Lane, hey, Joe Goodman, AL.com. I appreciated your candor on NAL. You're the czar of college football. How do you fix it? And that's the natural follow-up to your State of the Union.
Yeah, I don't like, it's like I tell our staff, I don't like you to tell me the problems but not the solution. So I feel like that in this one, that I don't have the exact solution because it is so complicated, and the commissioner, who's much more educated than I on these things, because I used to say they should be employees so they can have real contracts, so when you come, you can sign somebody to a 2, 3, 4-year contract, and but there's way more issues. That solves one problem, I think he said, but then it opens up 5, 10 more when they're actually employees of a university. So I don't have the exact answers. I've always said, when asked, shorten the windows, so at least we know what your roster is, and not so many chances for players, because really, like I said, I like the players get paid, but there's no other system like it. Like the player, I've told our players, I've told our parents of our significant players, like, it is a great time to be a kid or a parent, okay, with where college football is. I'm like, they'll probably eventually fix this, so you will be this one window of a couple years where you literally can leverage your program every window, or you can go into free agency and find the most money out there. And now we're seeing you really get paid 3 times if you want to. You can get paid coming out of high school. You can one-time transfer, go in, get the most money, get paid again. Then you can grad transfer and get paid again. So eventually you're not going to be able to do that, I would think, and have that leverage basically every semester to do that. So I've told them it's an awesome time for them.
Coach will stay in the same section over on the right-hand side, right aisle, second row.
Hey Lane, Andy Witchery with On3. The Grove Collective is one of the 7 that's formed a collective association, and they plan on introducing a revenue sharing bill, or a model rather. So similar to the last question, what are your thoughts on potential revenue sharing in the future?
Okay, that mic went a little bit in and out there. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, the collective at Ole Miss is one of 7 that has formed a collective association, and they plan to introduce a revenue sharing model in the near future. What are your thoughts on a potential revenue sharing model for college football players?
Yeah, I mean, I think there, again, almost like everything on this subject, there's good and bad to everything that comes in. I think that revenue sharing, on the surface would be great because the players are getting paid and it's coming from the money they're helping make the university. But again, I kind of try to think things through, and the other things that happen when you do something, just like when everybody was like, oh, we got this NIL, it's great. And then, in this portal, it's great. Whoa. And I'm not saying I was the only one saying it. I'm like, whoa, this is a disaster coming because you just legalized cheating. And you just told donors they can pay the players. That's what you did. And then, it's supposed to be set up well. It's really for your name, image, likeness, for your marketing. Again, that's not what happened. That's not what's happening. They're getting paid to go to school, so it's pay for play. So the revenue sharing sounds really good, but then they're like, okay, well, we're going to revenue share, and then that's all they get. And I said, okay, well, wait. But then they're still going to have NIL, which really isn't NIL for probably 99% of the kids. They're not really getting the money for their marketing rights. So then revenue sharing would be good, but then you're still going to have this. So they say, well, revenue sharing would make it an equal playing field, which is what NCAA always wants to do, make things equal playing field. Well, obviously, is what we described, with no salary cap and everybody operating off of different budgets. That's not anywhere close. So I don't know that fixes it. It sounds good, but then you're still going to have, here's your revenue sharing pot that everybody's the same, but then here you're still going to have all this other money that donors can go give players, or the way it is now, in some states, the school just funnels the money to the players.
Coach will go here to our left on the near aisle.
Good morning, Coach. Johnny Ballpark Franks with Franks Media here in Nashville and Huntsville. For decades, head coaches have been reminding players don't do anything to embarrass themselves, their family, teammates, and the university. Now in this new college football world that we see with NIL, the transfer portal, how much more difficult is it for a head coach to get that message across, not just to the student athletes, but also to staff members as well?
Well, I think that's always challenging. I think the challenge now is everything they do is public, so anything they do that maybe years ago, because the cell phone videos and everything, didn't get out there, that basically you've got to figure that someone's watching in everything you do all the time. So it is more challenging for these guys. That is a great thing. One of the few things that are great about cell phones is that, actually, because now the players are held more accountable in everything that they do. So in that way, it's gotten easier.
Coach will go straight in front.
Just to form a roster based off the model of a player that you're actually looking for.
Yeah, so the challenge on the roster is because of the different windows that you don't know what you have, you don't know what you're losing. Think about it this way. Imagine in professional sports, really, I'm going to give you another window, because grad transfers can still leave. They can leave in training camp. So imagine like in professional sports, which again we are. So as far as it is with players, that you're coaching a player in camp and then they go, you know what, I don't like the way you're coaching me. I've graduated, so I'm going to go. I'm going to go play for another team. And teams know that. People pre-portal, and they know who's who's going in, they know who's graduated, so you're really dealing with that too, and that messes kids up. I say, like, it's really challenging for a kid. He's working out with his team in the off season, but then other schools are calling him about going there and him being fully invested when, hey, the strength coach yells at me, or I don't like this, where I am on the depth chart, and I can leave. You know, that's not really a good setup, and there's a reason. I feel like in college sports, we usually always look at professional sports as like, okay, let's learn. They're usually ahead of us, you know, when it comes to systems and rules of the play, you know, on game day. So we usually copy them, and in this situation, it's like they have this model that works about free agency windows, about long-term contracts. Again, like I said, look at all those great players. They just leave at any time during training camp. And for whatever reason, our model is not at all near theirs. So it's very difficult. And you got dynamics in locker rooms too. Again, these players talk, they know what players get paid, and then you got dynamics around the country. Well, wait, I've been here, I've made these plays, and that guy just got here and he's gonna make more money than me. So again, not a good setup.
Coach, we'll go right in front of you.
But like I said kind of before, you want to look at the best booster in the country, and eventually the schools that have the most money that decide to pay the players. And just look at recruiting rankings the next few years, and that'll give you your answer. Because again, it is what it is, guys, and you can't fault them. You had 18-year-old kids deciding where to go. The number one thing they decide on is money, their salary. I mean, I think you guys would have done that when you're 18. So, I mean, you can't fault them. That's why you see some kids going, like, why is that kid going way over there? Well, he's going there because he's making more money. So, you can't fault them for that. That's the setup that they're in. We have so many transfers coming in at so many different spots. It would be hard to single guys out. So it just is what it is nowadays. I mean, we look out there, and there's times that, you know, we joke and we like pause the film and go like, okay, well, there's, you know, we're like still learning names, but we know schools. We're like, well, there's a receiver from that school, there's a tight end from that, there's a receiver from that, the quarterbacks, USC, you know, the running backs, SMU, like, and you end up going like, wait, our whole skill roster was from some other school, like we're an NFL team, like we drafted them from somewhere.
And we have time for two quick ones. We'll start over here on the right, front row. Yep, there you go.
Evelyn Van Pelt with the Rebel Walk. You talked about it just a minute ago with the NIL and the locker room. How do you handle any kind of potential dissension? Because you're right, the players do know he makes this much and I make this much.
Yeah, the question is about handling the locker room with the NIL issues and the players getting paid different, you know. And I try to teach our guys like real life. And, you know, we say like pro mindset, like we have a pro mindset about how we run the program with guys and our expectations. So I get it, because they come in complaining. You know, I've been here, you know, I transferred here, and now this guy, we hear this guy's going to make more money than me. And I said, you know what? I'm not saying it's fair, but get ready, that's life. That's going to happen. You're going to be in the NFL locker room, and you signed a contract, and this new guy, or you got drafted in the 4th round, and this new guy coming in, you're playing ahead of him, and he makes more money than you. And sorry to say, I mean, you want the real truth? Like I give them, it depends when you went in. You know, guys make more now than when they went in the portal a year or two ago. And then they used up their one-time transfer. So I'm like, hey, I'm just teaching you how life works. Like, it is what it is. You know, you used your window. You don't have the leverage now to go in, you know, until you graduate, because you can't go in a second time. So there's the truth of what really happens. But I teach them, hey, you basically signed a contract, even though you don't have a real contract. Like, you're here to play. You accepted whatever the terms are that you and the collective did. So go play and then figure it out after the season. You know, my dad used to say that to coaches in his first meeting of the year. Hey guys, quit worrying about your contracts or what you sign. Whatever you sign, it is what it is. let's get together, let's play really well, let's coach really well, and then worry about that in the off season. So that's what I tell them now. The best way you make more money is to play really well.
Coach will
Guys, these kids are young, and now they're getting all that attention around the country. They're the best player, all the rat poison from your coach, and now they got money. So now it's kind of like, whoa, you talk about ego coming in. I mean, so this is a lot of challenges on these kids. Again, it's great they get paid, but here's a whole new set of challenge, because a big motivation for a lot of players is to get to the NFL to get money. Well, now they already have money. So there's a lot of challenges in here in dealing with ego, which is really dangerous.